The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people are evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spent a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. Still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, my group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha everyone, I'm geologist Philip Ong, here with Mr. Dane DuPont of HawaiiTracker.com, bringing you guys another Kīlauea volcano update, with a little touch on Mauna Loa as well. Mauna Loa is not doing a whole lot, so as usual, we'll just touch base and go kind of quickly. We will be doing 2 parts today. We're going to start off with our regular activity update on Kilauea, and we will take questions and discuss questions as we go along. I'll let Dane know questions in the chat. He'll lead a chat discussion and pass some things along here. And we'll also go through like all the monitoring data, show you guys a live look-in at Kilauea with our friends Two Pineapples. We'll show you some of the highlights of what they've caught over the past week here, show you some of the new media the USGS has put out, give you the lava viewing report, earthquakes, all the usual stuff, right? So Daniel, got anything to add here at the top before we jump into it?
No, it looks like a pretty packed presentation you have lined up for us, so let's get into it.
All right. So let me get my the right window open here. Here we go. Here we go. Here's our weekly summary. Starting you guys off as a picture that Dane pulled off from the KW camera from, actually the B1 camera from, looks like a few days ago on the 18th, catching this nice rainbow here, looking from the east at that crater, crusted crater with a lava lake would be back here in the background. Not quite visible, but pretty cool scenery there. So we'll start off by looking at this. We're going to start zoomed in today. We'll zoom in, switch it up a little bit, week to week. And great job, Dane, last week, holding down a fort. This week we'll start off with our V1 camera, zoomed into that main active lava lake. That's the most active part of the summit eruption. The lava, once again, is coming in at this end and flowing that way, and it's sinking down here and over here at this end, and then over here as well. So that's kind of what's happening. The first thing to notice is the lava level. The lava level starts off low about a week ago. That's kind of following that whole story of the arch not forming, or the arch forming and then collapsing that Dane took you guys through. And actually, if I zoom into it here, we can see that the lava level starts off low with no arch, then fills back in, starts developing that crust, forms an arch. The camera moves a little bit, so it's a little bit hard to see exactly, but there's that arch forming, and then you can see it actually that gets submerged there. So I'm going to let it loop around again. There it is from last week, coming around. There it is forming right in the middle. And there you see it peaking up a little bit, it gets kind of fat, falls in, and lava fills back in. So pretty interesting stuff there. That's our V1 camera. It looks like you also can see a little overflow. See if I can see it come in here when the lava level comes up. Not quite so visible here. Maybe up there. It just flashed in here at the end. That little lobe there. So a pretty quick overflow there. So lava level is occasionally barely popping over here, especially on this side over here. But for the most part, it's staying in there. You see a lot of spattering happening where it's sinking down there. You see spattering happening over here at this edge as well. Sometimes you see bubbles that'll migrate across the lake still, kind of carried with the crust. So lots of cool stuff to see still. And especially in this most active part, that's the most reliable viewing. It's only 2% of the crater floor, more or less, but still really good to look at, especially when you have some good magnification there. So moving on from the V1, we'll switch over to the S1 camera today. Let me pull it back here. Because I'm so interested in this arch, so we're looking at that same active lava lake surface right here. We get a little bit wider view, so we see some ooze-ups here in the foreground. This is the southwest part of the crater. There's some ooze-ups over here as well, on this northwest side too. But for the most part, we can look at this lava lake. You see a couple of glowing spots there, over here by the central island on its southeast side. More glowing cracks. Lots of little stuff, but zooming in here, it's not as clear a view as from the other angle zoomed in. So you see the archway form a little bit right in there. Camera moves once again as well. It collapses, it's kind of thin, but it does pop in here as well. I'll let you guys see it right there. There it is. All right. Slight overflow happening over there as well. So moving on, we'll keep things moving today. Here's our F1 camera. Let me rewind it back to the start of a week ago. And there it is. There's our main lava surface. There's that southeast pit that we're looking at, that connection of the archway right in there. It's a lot harder to see, but you can see a little bit of that same character happening right in there too, of arch formation and then disappearing under the lava level that's rising. Oh, that's everywhere. We still have this west vent pond, as I've been calling it. That's like part of the pathway, so the lava comes up underneath this west vent complex somewhere over here, as well as the ooze-ups, right? But it comes underneath this pond area before it goes that way, something like that. That was the pathway we saw develop over those first few months. Now if I zoom it out, maybe you can catch down here this large ooze-ups that are happening on this western side of the crater west, and then northwest side over here as well. So a big ooze-up, pretty widespread. You can see it actually made a kind of a pond, lava pond back there. And otherwise, you see earlier in the week, not a whole lot of ooze-ups happening. And we'll come back to this longer-term picture. There is one back over here in the southeast part of the crater. Another one over here on the eastern side. But it's a little bit slower than we've seen maybe 2 months ago or something like that. So moving on, F1 camera for the last 24 hours. Let me give this a refresh because there was something ongoing I wanted to show you guys. So here it is. Here's that from the last 24 hours, that larger ooze-up on the west, but over here on this northwest side is where it pops open in the more recent hours. And if we look at the webcam right now, we'll see that breakout right there. There it is. Let's see if that's the both of them. So if I pull back to the main recent image, reload it here, there's a live view of that northwest part, right? So that's probably visible most easily from the Kīlauea overlook area. So anyone in that area for viewing tonight might be looking at that breakout tonight. obviously a lot to look at. There's lava over here, there's lava over here, and over here, and over here, and over here. So plenty of things to look at from all different viewpoints that we'll get to here shortly. Okay, the wider view from the KW camera. Day and night. Our main active lava lake once again. Still looking from the west now. But we get a better view of these farther edges of the crater over here. And we can assess whether there's much oozing happening over there. It's pretty dark most of the time. We do see these bigger ooze-ups here, more on the western side, and others back over here. But not as much happening in this northern sector over the past week. A lot quieter there by these little cat ear shaped tips of the lava lake. So maybe not as much to see from that Kilauea overlook in the north. So usually focuses on this backside, but plenty to see elsewhere. And even there you might see it, depending where you go and what your luck is with the oozing. The B1 camera, that's focused more on that eastern side that that Vent's looking at. You can see the crater floor is actually visibly popping up some of these days. But otherwise not a whole lot of activity like we were saying from the other side. There is that southern ooze up. There was one that maybe comes in at the end. I guess we don't see it coming on this camera here. That main active lava lake is just a little glow and a far back way over here. So much to see. We need all these different angles. Moving on, now we're going to step back in time a little bit. So this is the whole last month that Dan put together. And we'll loop through it here, but you can kind of see that the main lava lake area is consistent at that time. There is that rising and falling and overflows happening, especially down in this direction. And you see ooze-ups happening earlier in the month around these farther areas, and then kind of a gap, and then just today here at the very end, starting to ooze up again. So that's the month-long view. It's been pretty similar. And in case you missed it last week, we'll play for you guys one more time. This is the USGS time-lapse of the whole eruption back from September all the way to now. Played 3 times in the loop, right? So from when we had that break following the previous eruption, and surging, filling that whole crater, and then now lifting up the whole crust of it and oozing out the sides. That's been a long-term pattern. Mahalo to the USGS for that. Okay, so all this is based on USGS reports, right, which we're seeing here, and this reminds me to transition us to the monitoring part of our update. So let me do that. There it is. We have some new values being reported, been reported this past week. We've now seen a total rise of 120 meters, 394 feet, close to 400 feet now. 93 million cubic meters, or 24 billion gallons. We'll see more accurate numbers, actually 92.5 million cubic meters and 24.4 billion gallons, getting close to 25 billion gallons, is what's come out from September until 6 days ago. Right? So when you're looking at these values, they're giving you a date as well. And if you really wanted to get exactly day to day, you'd have to go to the graphs and add the difference. But we'll leave it at this as good enough here for today. So there's also been a map released, and this is that map of that summit area, that main caldera all the way over here. And then within the pit, the lava lake, and here's a collapse pit of 2018 where it can still fill without really spreading onto the main caldera floor still. So zooming into there is our 2 cat ears, as I've been calling them. Not a whole lot of activity in the last week over there, but ooze-ups are happening across all this pink area in the perimeter. This dashed line shows the original extent of that crater floor at the beginning of the eruption here. The yellow are little islands that are sticking up. This is all that kind of floating cap that's been rising buoyantly and lava oozing up around that area, with a main persistent active lava lake in red right over here. Okay, so often I find the most value in these numbers here that are reported. So here's our exact 24.4 billion gallons, or 92.5 million cubic meters. If you're curious, 262 acres, 106 hectares. Oh, something just happened with my audio. Give me a second. I hear something coming through.
I can hear them talking.
So, no, that's not it. Okay, I cut out. All right.
Something's playing.
Yeah, I thought it might have been one of my previews of Yeah, something like this. But we'll get to that later. Jumping around too much. Let's go back to our monitoring, our blog.
Jump in and say 1 second, jump in real quick. Thank you, Chris, for the $20 super chat. Says thank you guys for all your hard work keeping us informed.
Yeah, mahalo for that, Dane. I didn't quite get you on the screen there in time, but all right. So, all right, here's our values. So we can use this and use the last map and subtract the difference, figure out how much has been added in that time, and get rates from all that. So I do all that for you guys. Right. So here is the comparisons of volume. We are following this red line. Our most recent value, 92.5, is all the way up here. Previous value was 76.8. Before that was 66, right? So every month we're getting more than 10 million cubic meters. That's a huge, huge gain. You can see basically the slope of this line hasn't changed that much for a while, really, since that after the second month of eruption there. Whereas for comparison, this blue line is the last eruption that went from December 2020 to May 2021. Didn't last as long, right? That lasted essentially 5 months. We are now 1 week shy of our 9-month mark. So next week we'll be talking about that some more. But you can see that really there was a very different pattern of these two eruptions after the first 2 months. And to make that a little easier to see, we can go closer to the actual incremental rates. Here's the whole eruption with a maximum scale. Both these eruptions peak pretty high. Our current one was at 129 cubic meters per second, and the previous one at 110. That really blows out the whole graph. So really have all this low stuff going further. We're over here at 4.2 for the most recent number. But I like to scale it a little better, so we're going to cut off that top up there and zoom into the bottom. So here you can see a little more closely the difference between the blue and red lines. 2 months in is about right in here. As you can see that where the last eruption basically had a little bump, but really petered off there at the end, pretty low. This current eruption, after that first month and a half or so, maybe looked like it might have been dropping down, but actually since that point has been on average rising, right, with a couple little almost little bumps on there, little extra surges, you might consider them possibly. So really the pattern is that, right, on average rising, and that's the difference, right? So it's actually not even holding steady, it's putting out more and more lava every day, which is really incredible. So the pipeway seems to be getting more open, it seems like. Magma's coming in, the supply rate must be high. All of that working together has made this the most voluminous summit eruption in the last 100 years. And so here is a plot that I've put together from all the eruption volumes listed in the USGS catalog. This goes back to 1924, and the reason being, before that, we have more information, but we don't have exact volumes, so we'll talk about that briefly here after this. But within the last 100 years, you can see that there have been many eruptions, mostly Halema'u, some Kanakakoi area, others Kilauea, like this is Kilauea right here. And of course, the most recent two eruptions, the current one right here, and the one before that right over here. So here's our volume, 92.5. Going across, you can see there's one other eruption that's close to the size. This was 6768. That was an 8.5 month eruption. We are now at 8 3/4, right? So we're going on 9 and no signs of stopping. So it looks like we're more or less the same rate, right? To explore that a little further. Here's a total volume of that last eruption was 90 million cubic meters. Maybe you guys can't see that unless I really zoom it way in. There's a 90, and there's a 92.5. Back out there. But those are the two that have had the highest volume, longest lasting eruptions at the summit that have deposited, right? Because it's worth noting that 2008 to 18 did add to that crater floor before the collapse, but not that much. Most of the lava was just circulating through there and heading out to Puʻuʻōʻo and then being placed as lava flows over in that area in the southeast rift plain, coastal plain. So not a whole lot of addition. That doesn't really, barely registers here. So we've broken the record for the most volume in the last 100 years here, which is pretty cool. In a little more detail, we can look at eruption rates. And the eruption rate we have right now for the whole eruption, the whole 9 months, is 4.1 cubic meters per second. That's a little over 5 cubic yards per second, right? And the last one from December to May last year was 3.1. So it's still robust, but it wasn't what we're having now, right? We're actually higher than before. We're pretty comparable to that 6768 eruption when I was 4.15. So pretty close, except we're likely to keep going and go past it there, right? It's interesting to note that when you look at these eruption rates, if I zoom it in here so you guys can see more of these, and I'll go across here. Those eruptions that followed the collapse in 24, none of them were very big, right? There were some bigger ones, but you can see that when we have higher rates, like there's a 38, the actual total volume ends up being pretty low. There's a 10 with a low volume, that's low volume and rate. There's like 115, Kīlauea in 71, but really didn't last very long, right? Less than a day. And likewise, again, 74, high values, right? So they typically start fast and then crash afterwards, and the longer they go, then that kind of brings the average down. So that's why you end up seeing these big volumes with these lower rates kind of hand in hand. Interesting connection there, interesting parallel. And mahalo to 67, 68. I don't think I had pulled up a image of that eruption, but maybe I can grab one of those here real quick if I can find it. Because I don't want to just displace that eruption and not celebrate it at all. I'd rather celebrate it a little bit too. So let's pull an image or two. Let me find a good one here. Find a wide one to start and go from there. Okay, here's one. There it is, a wide angle. We had that collapse pit of 24, and then within it, that pit, the lava lake in the middle, and it was spilling over and feeding flows around the perimeter. So there's one view of it. When you zoomed in, you can see a lot of these spattering and flows that were happening there as well. There was draining events that occurred during that eruption, exposing some high little islands-like spots. We talked about that briefly before as well. Other times the lake looked more crusted over, like ours, right? Lava lake crust, but bubbling up from certain locations. A different view of a similar process there. And maybe one final one here, showing that lava lake actually getting perched within that crater floor and then spilling over those big flows there. So that's a 67, 68 eruption. And I just wanted to make sure we celebrated a little bit, like I said, before we move on with this volume analysis here, right? So these graphs I've pulled from a professional paper, 1806 from the USGS. And what we're looking at in this graph right here is magma supply rate, cubic kilometers per year. And basically the size of the red and blue is the size of how much magma is coming into the system during some interval of time, which are not even down here. They've actually put some blue for the flank movement a little bit in there, but really we're going to consider it all of the whole and not discuss that little separation today. So the point really being that since 1924, which ends up being at this part of the graph right here, the eruption rate has been climbing and has been higher in the recent couple of decades than ever before, right? So that's part of why we're breaking a record for the last 100 years. Is really the last 100 years haven't been well represented with good eruption rates until recently, right? We've seen that now. 2018 was really an anomaly being very high from other mechanisms, but still caused by that high eruption rate that really helped build up the whole Puʻuʻōʻo era. So this is the supply rate very high right now, but the reason I want to bring this up is if you go back in time, there's another graph from that paper, which is not exactly the same thing. This is magma filling rate of a summit crater, and I've recolored it here. But basically it's showing you that before 1924, there were low filling rates for a while, but actually previous to 1840, there were some very high filling rates, right? So likely the last time the crater was filling at this rate was back in this 1832 to 1840 or 1823 to 1840 era, really, that whole thing. And to kind of give us some idea of the filling rate now, right? If we think about this eruption has hit 92.5 million cubic meters. The last one from 2020 to 2021 was 41.2. So that gives us, was it 133-ish? That is about 0.1 cubic kilometers, which would fall here on this scale, right? That's 2 years. This is per year. So really we're looking at something like somewhere in here as our filling rate right now if we were to take the last year and a half only. Yeah, so really we're above what we're seeing in a lot of this historical interim, but we're not anywhere near as much filling as happened back in that century. That's worth stating clearly as well. So we have the most voluminous eruption right now in the last 100 years, but it's nowhere near the record just based on what we have of this data back from the 1800s. We don't have exact numbers, exact rates, but we know the estimates are a lot larger than what we're seeing now. So put that in context there for you guys. So with that said, we'll turn to our regular monitoring signals now and look at the summit lava depth from September to now. So here is that whole curve coming up, still rising. We see the regular wiggles in it. We can look in more detail at the other plots here. But while we're looking big picture, here's GPS. One side of the caldera to the north, to the south, still spreading apart. This upward trend, a lot of little wiggles and variations if you look close here, like little. If you're trying to go day to day and look day to day or week to week, you might be like, oh, it's going way down. Oh, it's going way up. And look, it's going to crash. Look, something's happening. But really, with this signal, you have to be more patient and let those things average themselves out. And not that these things don't mean anything as far as adjustments that are happening locally. That's real data. But as far as the implications of how significant they are, that's really what we're concerned about as far as where that may suggest eruption is leading. And that's what we're more concerned about. Right? This kind of thing, which might lead to an eruption, right? As was the case back last year. On the East Rift Zone, same unchanged story, contraction north to south, still settling down, right? And likewise, little variations occurring, but likely nothing significant either. Right? Okay. So, lava depth for the last week, and the tilt for the last week here. Depth on top, tilt on the bottom. You can see very similar patterns. You see that we had actually a fairly close resumption of tilt and lava depth this time, right? Which might be suggesting more of an instantaneous response and a more open connection. We've been tracking that development a little bit. It looks like there's almost a little bump in here, but really there's not anything that we see in the tilt that corresponds. That's just some other variation, perhaps. Maybe that was the one of these collapses we've been describing, right? Although most of the ones we have on video are from earlier last week. Moving on to the longer time scale of 1 month. Lava depth at the top, the tilt's here at the bottom. So there is that similar pattern. One thing to note, looking at the last month, is you can see that for the first half of last month, even with these variations, the lava level was a little bit more steady. And really, since early June, it's been on a slow rise. That's the background, more significant trend here. With these little variations of up and down being cool curiosities that inform us to what's happening, but overall the trend is still filling, and that's the important thing here. We saw that little instantaneous blip popping up right here during the last deflation, inflation, and filling event, right? And I wanted to scroll back to the one that occurred a couple weeks ago, right? Here it is, when we saw that instantaneous response, and then a gap, and then the lava lake coming up, right? And notice that length of time. It's not, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but this is, on this graph, it's that far. If I scroll over here, you can see that that amount of time was shorter, that lagged actually there, right? So that would suggest right there that that pipeline is becoming more open, right? Last week, and then here, this looks like at first like it might be a similar kind of bump and then a resumption, but like we just saw, zooming into it, this corresponds more closely to the exact time of the inflation too. So, and if not, if this is an actual bump, then still a very short time here. So interesting to track that development, right? And as a aside and curiosity, I wanted to jump back to last week's Volcano Watch, which Dane did a great job of reviewing. But there's one sentence in here I wanted to highlight that's here at the bottom of this, right? So we discuss here, with an ongoing eruption in Lava Lake, do we expect Kilauea to experience a similar crater collapse anytime soon? Simple answer is no. Unlike during the 1916 collapse, the current lava lake is fed by a vent at its side rather than its base. Lacking an effective drain, summit depressurization cannot evacuate lava from the crater so easily. So they're saying that because of the opening is not at the very bottom, as it was back in the early 1900s, right? That it's harder for it to drain out. And yeah, that seems absolutely intuitive and true, right? the vent is at the side, especially if you consider both the 2020 to 2021 eruptions and 2021 and 2022 eruptions together. But the vent's also not at the top, right? So it makes you consider the possibility in the future that there could be some partial draining, right? If that pathway is becoming more and more open, maybe that increases the possibility that there could be some partial draining, right? You can't drain all the way to the bottom because there's no hole at the very bottom. But the hole that opened up, the vent that opened up for this eruption, is quite a bit beneath the crust right now. Most of that 400 feet that we've gained is above that vent, so it could drain somewhat sometime. That's totally possible. I mean, we'd have to actually have lava stop coming in faster and faster every day. And so I think that more than anything supports their assertion here that it's not going to collapse, is that the supply rate's so high that it seems unlikely to be able to drain away there. Dan, you got something you want to?
Right. Yeah, I was just this thing. Like I was reading over that at the time, and it's something just it felt weird about it to me. Just it being on the side versus it being plugged at the bottom. Take the lava lake that existed prior to 2018. You could open up something above, like say hypothetically, somehow it found a way to open up above that conduit in the wall, and then drain back into the wall. It's still just as easy to drain. This thing, as you said, it could open up potentially, but if it were to drain now, right, 2020 as we have it set up now, and it were to drain in the way that you're talking about through that vent that it's been widening, we don't know how much. Couldn't you create that type of where the middle would sink, and then that you'd get these potentially benches exposed with the same type of situation?
Totally, right. Yeah, absolutely, right. So
Okay.
yeah, so you could have like you couldn't drain the crater all the way out, I think is basically what they're saying. Right, because right, like
I gotcha.
Your straw is not going to get all the way to the bottom of your drink, so there's going to be some left down there, kind of thing, something like that. Right. That's what I got out of it personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, maybe you could see something in the future, but like I said, first we need to see the rate turn around, because that doesn't seem very likely at any point right now. Okay, so let me come back to our monitoring data and finish this up with our gas. A gas often is tied to our summit tilt here. And we have seen that to a large degree, but there's been a lot more variation in the last month than we typically see. So, for example, deflation, inflation, so we have high values and low values, not quite exactly matching, but you can see the variation across deflation, inflation events. This one seems like it might match up a little more with being within a deflation. And then here's two low values that don't actually match any deflation inflation signal at all. Seems to climb higher. Really no visible change in the tilt. Right here we see a deflation inflation event that does have some low values there, but then this one is extra low. That looks like it's 700 tons per day, which is would be one of the lowest values we've seen for a while. And the two most recent ones that seem to follow the most recent deflation inflation are showing values between 2,000 and 2,500 tons per day of SO2. So these are all a reasonable range, but the variation is a little bit weird, and I do wonder about whether gas is coming out the same at all different parts of the crater, whether they're able to measure all the gas from across all the parts of the crater together, or whether they're measuring one particular spot, or if that might lead to some variation. So those would be my questions, and we will see if we can find something out. All right, so SO2 being our main hazard, that will help us switch over here to our hazard summary. So, okay. Because as you may remember, to get the VOG, it takes the actual amount of gas being emitted at the source, and then the weather, and also some sunlight to help those reactions occur to form particles from the actual gas. So let's move to that's not the one yet. Our VOG forecast here. So this particular forecast has a 750 tons per day input, which is that one of those low ones. So a little on the light side there, right? We might, think of these values could be a little bit darker oranges and reds, right? But it's giving us a pattern at least, and you can see that for the most part, the trade winds are mostly back. and fog is being blown to South Hawaii for the most part. A little bit sneaking up here to the north, but not nearly as much as we've seen at some points in time. And really, this last week has been a lot better, more typical summer weather pattern than the week before and the week before that as well. However, to make sure we can still document this, here is purple air, right? You can see the values are not 0 down here in South Kona. We have 13. I'm going to click on that one and see if it gives me a history here, right? So you can see in the history of it, we are popping into the yellow. It just happened to not be there today, but you can see that over the last week, it's popped into the yellow 1, 2, 3, 4 times, almost a fifth, right there. So that's certainly still noteworthy, and make sure we keep documenting that. The people who live in these areas that really do not want to be forgotten. There is an impact still. It's just not the same kind of impact as 2018, of course. It's a longer term impact, and not to say it's not as influential in people's lives that live in this area as well, if they're having issues with that fog, if they're sensitive, for example. So that is the fog forecast. I thought we would check in on national park individual sites here, and everything is green, you can see, for the most part, except for Kahuku facilities. Have been in a yellow today for particulate matter 2.5 right there. So Kahuku facilities, if I go back to this fog map, are down in this area over here. So not surprising to see that that's where the fog is going right there. Right? Everywhere else in the park is in the green. And if I put the main park page here, you can see wind direction, and you can see all the different viewing areas around the north and east part of the caldera, all in the green upwind. So everything is good there as far as the viewing. And that is what we will switch to talking about next, is our lava viewing report. Kind of part 1, because we're going to do a little something special and show you guys a live looking later on. But to summarize, here's a national park map. And I'll zoom in here to this upper corner of it, where we have Hale Crater, Wikahuna, and we've discussed our overlooks, Kanakakoi over here in the south, Wikahuna, Kilauea Overlook here in the north, and we've been talking more recently about Kupinaʻipali, Waldron's Ledge over here in the east. So this is something we were talking about in more detail for a few weeks now. Showed you guys a video a couple weeks ago. And what you can see here is that as of this last week, the national park is also promoting, let's see if I can make this bigger text for you guys to try to see. Maybe too much, there we go. So, National Park, promoting Kupinaʻipali. Where's the lava? Right this way, folks. Avoid the crowds and skip the trip to Kanakakoi if you're visiting during peak hours, 4 to 9 p.m. Instead, park at Kilauea Visitor Center where there's ample parking, and follow the signs to Kupinaʻipali, Waldron's Ledge. Our nifty new eruption signs are strategically placed to help you find your way. Bring a flashlight, it gets really dark in the park when the sun goes down. Bonus, it's a much shorter walk than Kanakakoi, about a quarter mile each way on pavement. So, cat's out of the bag, secret's out, we talked about it, park talked about it.
Yep.
Everyone's going there now.
Yeah, and hopefully those signs are nice and good, because one thing we almost did when I was up there with my folks was stop a little bit too short, because they're like, oh, look, you can almost see it, and wanted to take pictures, and then I just walked a little bit further than you could see it clearly. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't walk that little bit further, you don't get the angle in.
Right.
So it's at like the far end of the thing that the real view is of Waldron's Ledge.
Right. So yeah, it's an interesting area. Like that used to be an overlook that was part of Critter Room Drive, right? And then that part of the critter fell in during the earthquake in 1982. It's not like a paved trail. It's an old road, right? And it's overgrown. Yeah. You can see like old parking stalls, and my kids ride their bikes there because it's such a nice wide area, right? It's where you go bike. Used to go bike riding. Steep. Yeah, it's steep enough.
Not too steep.
It's steep enough, paved. Especially with those kid bikes that don't have any gears. Why they even make those, but whatever. Yeah, great place. So it's worth mentioning. Like Dan says, the far end of the overlook has got a better view, like kind of past all the picnic tables. But I will say, if it starts getting crowded there as well, I've been mentioning that you can keep walking down that road. There's like a gap of viewing, right? You gotta go all the way down the road and get on a trail. But then you get into the forest, you can get a little bit further away from, if it gets crowded over there, you can get into the forest and get different views through the trees not as wide open, but different views of the lake also, right? So if you're someone that doesn't want the crowds, but you don't want to walk quite as far, you can still explore that area, go past the overlook and go a little further, and you might get something slightly more special and personalized, or get your own little zone or what have you, right? And that's what I look forward to as over the years to come. More and more places people can spread out and, you know, get their own view into the stadium. So pretty cool. So Kupeinaʻi, there it is. Couple of things over there. First is, I just wanted to play the beginning of this video that we played a couple weeks ago for you guys. This is a video I took at Kupeinaʻi before the cat was really out of the bag, right? So views of the bubbling lava lake last week, and zooming it out so you can get a view of what it might look like from there. See, put this forward a little bit. Oh, there we go. Too much. I'm zoom it out some more. Lots of gas. You know, the gas can come and go. The one thing I'll say about this Kupeinaʻi viewing area is it is on the east side of the caldera, which is slightly the wetter side of the crater. Yeah, there's a panned out view. Slightly the wetter side of the caldera, so you can get more weather there, right? Whether it's the actual fog, or whether it's drizzle or mist or what have you, you know. But you are closer back to shelter to the car. So you can always make a run for it that way, right? That's one nice thing about Kenikakoi, is it actually is slightly on the dry side of the island, even though it's only a few miles away. That's the dramatic change in climate and rainfall across the caldera is really, really something. So I'll stop my video here. This is a little looking at Kupeinaʻi a few weeks ago. I'm going to highlight something that was caught by two pineapples earlier this morning, right? They're looking. It's hard to tell exactly, but this is a ponded lava lake, and if you look here in the back, you can see the crust breaking over and falling in, right? So actually, if I put it back a little bit, look right here, you'll see spatter coming from the cone, right? That's part of the West Vent complex, I believe, right there. And a little bit of spatter coming out, and then behind that, along that back wall, is an ooze up flow. Oozed up, made a big ponded area. And what happens is it's still hot underneath, but the crust is already formed. That crust gets broken and recycled back into the pond, and it gets exposed, right? And all turns orange, and then it actually, over time, hardens and becomes that darker crust once again, makes a new crust. So mahalo for you guys, you guys. Let me see here. Let's try to give this a reload. So two pineapples are over at, oh, I'm gonna get an ad. See if I can at least turn the sound off on my ad, so you guys don't have to suffer through that. Right. So yeah, we'll try to get a live look in here with those guys, and we'll do that a little bit more here at the end of our broadcast today. Ad number 2. Thanks. Thank you. And here we go. So there is a live look in right now. Mahalo, you guys. Lou and Anna for giving us a special view. We'll come in once again at the end here. Check in and see a little bit more of the evening nighttime view, right? So pretty cool. You can see it's been a little drizzly up there, a lot of steam and mist. That's one nice thing. People think, oh, rain might ruin everything, but I think it's nice how it actually highlights where all the steaming occurs and where all the heat goes, right? So we'll come back to those guys later. Wanted to mention the Kilauea overlook with Kahuna from the north. Here is an old view of it once again, and you see that through this gap where those oozes may occur, right in there. It's worth mentioning that. It's still there. But we'll go back to Kenikakoi, and here's that wide angle view of Kenikakoi from two pineapples that we've been repeating. I think it's a nice angle. Mauna Loa there in the background, nicely visible. And from that viewpoint, we've been using the S1 camera as an approximation of what is visible. So the main lava lake there, ooze ups in the back, we pointed out in our earlier frames here. That's what it looks like right now. But I'm going to go back to last week when Two Pineapples was over at that Kenikakoi overlook and caught this on their video. So I'll just play it and let you hear them react.
Oh, you mean like right there?
Whoa.
See that? Huge wave just came
Oh, there.
Whoa.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Oh.
Wow, that just collapsed.
Oh. Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Wow, look at that.
Wow, it was like a huge wave that just came through.
That's great.
I know, we're right there. Good spot.
That's an awesome.
Pretty cool. So those guys are using multiple cameras now. That's a really awesome production boost there, and I'll play it for you guys once again without the sound now, just so you guys can see the actual event happening here. And there a wider view on the left, closer in view on the right. The back edge of that wall of the pond drops, right? You can notice the height. It's falling a little ways, right? So it's actually when lava level is down a bit still. So lava level is down, and you imagine when lava level is down, it's not pushing against the walls everywhere, right? So a little bit less support, but also it could be eroding, or it could be heating and cracking the walls. There's all kinds of adjustments happening when the lava level is dropped down that amount. So really cool. Mahalo, you guys, once again, an awesome, amazing catch there. And with that, I'm going to actually transition us over to a USGS video that was released in the last couple of days here. And since it is a USGS video here, I'm going to transition us from our lava viewing segment into our media of the week, right? Because that is one media released by the USGS this week. So they actually caught as well a collapse of the portion of the lake rim, and dusty plume, and lake agitation, including waves that traveled across the lake surface. Same day, actually, right? But it was a different time in the day, I believe. A little later in the day is where they caught theirs. So let's play it. I'm playing this at 2x speed because their image is a little bit jerky. But we'll play it through one time first, just so you guys can see it actually happen. There it went. There is a cloud. And they're on that left side of the image, and maybe you can see some of the agitation of the waves coming through. And if not, I'll zoom it in here so maybe you can see it a little bit better. And this camera is a little bit jerky. Is it playing any faster? It is playing faster. Okay, let's pull it back here. So pull it back. Zoom it in. You can notice our archway is there as well. Lava flowing through the archway at that point in time. Now pan it over. Oh, not soon enough. Not soon enough. I'll pull it back a little bit. Play it again. Zoom it in right here. There's a crack. There is the edge. Boom, in it goes. Similar kind of thing. Dust cloud, actually, but this is more the site where the lava has been spattering, going into this area and spattering, and then it's not surprising that all this high stuff over here has been spattering up onto this thing is then too heavy and falls back in, especially once the lava level is dropped. So pretty cool. I actually thought the two pineapples video was a little better. And I'll take both of them. Mahalo, both of you guys. So
Okay.
on with our
Quite
media of the
lucky
week.
to get two of them. Quite
Yeah,
lucky to
two
get
different
two of them
ones. Yeah.
together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it actually is different parts of the crater, right? So because of the different perspectives. So there actually were two separate collapses and two different sides of that lake, just going to show how when the lava level is down, especially that one day, several collapses off the wall of the lake. Really fascinating. Here's a view from last week of that entire filling crater area. This is the same day that they were measuring from the helicopter. I saw all the helicopter flying day right here, and in fact, I meant to pull something out of that, but let's see if I can find it or not. Well, I'll just mention it now, right? When I was looking through some of the two pineapple stuff, they actually caught the USGS helicopter flying down into the pit. I meant to pull that out, but I ran out of time to do that here today for you guys. So I'll let you maybe next week I'll pull it out, and just to show you guys all kinds of cool things you can see during those long live streams. You never know. So there's a main lava lake. Here is those two cat ears I've been referring to them there and there, with that main lake over here, West Vent Complex over here. Just showing you the whole extent compared to the old Crater Rim Road right there. Kankakoi Overlook is up here on the left. Kankakoi Crater, and that 2018 collapse edge way out there. So lots of place for the lava to still fill and come up. This is interesting. We've discussed this in the past. These tall spatter cones on the eastern part of Hawaii Mau's crater floor. There's one and a second one. You can see how yellow, a lot of elemental sulfur deposits on top of the cone. That's really fascinating, really cool. So definitely these are gas vents, heavy gas vents, and other parts of the crater floor are seeing a lot of gas evidence as well, with all this discoloration, deposition of sulfate crystals coming from the gas on the what was just some fresh lava not that long ago, right over here. So interesting, because they are now terming these hornitos today. Hornitos on the surface of Halemaumau. And we, in the past, were a little hesitant to use that term because usually hornitos are associated with lava tubes, right? And we really didn't know anything about lava tubes existing under that lake, perhaps, but certainly there are pathways of lava down there. We've discussed that, whether you call them tubes or not, who knows? Well, the USGS is calling them tubes now, because here you can see hornitos are small rootless cones that are fed by the tube network within a lava lake. These features are less than 30 meters, several tens of feet tall. More prevalent on the eastern side of Halemaumau, where the tube network beneath the crust controls the movement of lava within a crusted lake in this sector of the summit area. So they're saying it's basically tube-dominated transport to the crust there, to this part of the crater floor under the crust. That's what I'm trying to say here. So fascinating to hear another take on that, right? And this is all just jargon, but really still cool to hear the experts discuss their opinions there. So it's not map we've gone over this already as a new release, but there are also thermal images. So here all the blue stuff is that cooled crust, and at the time of this image there was a little bit of a breakout here in yellow, and you can see cracks of red between that crust of the lava lake. Another ooze up here in the south. There is that West Vent Pond right in there. If I zoom it way in, you can maybe see those details a little bit better. West Vent Pond, main lake, southeast pit, ooze up flows. And there's a zoomed out view as well, showing the entire area, right? Kupinai Pali over here in the east, Kanakakoi in the south, Wikahuna in the north is where you can reach right now. So that is our media this week. There is one more set of images to mention from last week, and this is showing the scientists deploying the magnetotelluric instruments, MT instruments, out across the southwest rift of Kilauea. So this is part of that summer fieldwork project, part of which is this MT survey, part of which is the aerial electromagnetic survey. And this one, you're basically burying these long electrodes in the ground, right, across this big transect. And they actually have the electrodes packed in a canvas bag filled with bentonite clay, and they then pour water over them to improve the electrical connection and contact resistance between the ground and those electrodes right there. So that's showing that process. Really cool to get that level of detail from the USGS in their caption here. Awesome. And there you can see an installed station right there. And so these things will be in the ground for 1 to 2 days only, and they'll come up and they'll dig them up. And these are in a national park, and they have all the right permits and all of that, and they're being careful as they can. So this particular study will be one of the ones that helps inform groundwater across the volcano. But it's part of that larger campaign, which is also putting out seismic nodes, which are going to help image that earthquake source underneath Pahala. So earthquakes are where we're going to turn next. And so I'll turn back our monitoring page here. I will put on our earthquakes tag and talk about earthquakes on Kilauea first. This is Kilauea for the last year, and we're down here in a steady low. Really, we're still in background. There's not a whole lot to talk about, really. The last big surge was basal earthquakes deep under Kilauea summit, and before that it was eruption buildup with intrusion and eruption ramp up right there. Over the last month, pretty small range really, between 70 and 20 earthquakes there per day. Not that much, maybe a slight little bump here at the right side, but really nothing major to speak of. If we look at the map, we can see that actually it's pretty quiet at the summit, pretty quiet in the south flank. I mean, relatively speaking, the earthquakes are still there, of course, but often there's more than what we see here. And there's actually quite a big cluster in Pahala. Pahala might be the center of action this past week. So here are the earthquakes in the past week. You can see the deep ones, and then a big gap, and then a little shallow ones above it, right? So no connection from surface to the deep earthquake zone right there, but still putting pressure that above there. And here's the rest of Kilauea to the side. So there it is. More dramatic if you look at the last month. Here's the last month. You see more of a full pattern underneath the Kilauea summit and the south flank. But you can see really how massive this Pahala contribution is down there, right? Across time here as well. So looking at our main earthquake map, here it is. There's Pahala's earthquakes. Our largest earthquakes this past week, 3.9 under Pahala, 3.8 under Pahala, 3.6 under Pahala, all 36 kilometers down. That's over 20 miles down. 3.4 under Pahala, 3.3 under Pahala, right? That's all the big ones are happening down in this zone right over here. Kilauea pretty quiet. Mauna Loa's got some, not a huge amount, but you can see some of these happening right in here, right? And some of these are decent size. They're all in the 2s, 2.1, 2.4, pretty shallow above sea level, 2.2 above sea level, 2.4 above sea level, 2.1 above sea level, 2.1 close to sea level right there, and there's one more back there that's 2.0 above sea level, right? So quite a lot going on. 0.8 to the northwest, and over by Waialae, 2.4 above sea level as well. Over here to the east, 2.9, pretty shallow as well, near Mountain View. But while those are noteworthy, and it's showing activity under Mauna Loa, the rates are still pretty low, not even what they were within the last couple of years when we've had big flank movements with no eruptions. So we're still seeing adjustment, magma is still coming in, the whole thing's still filling. We can look at a GPS right here, and GPS is no longer earthquakes. So we will put on our Mauna Loa summary up here. And you can see that it was spreading, maybe a little bit of a hiatus, and then now clearly spreading north and south parts of that summit caldera, getting further and further apart on this graph here, is what we're seeing. So that is showing magma coming in. Mauna Loa is still at alert level yellow, likely because of these earthquake rates, earthquake patterns, GPS patterns, presence of these big magnitude 2s still at the summit. But really, it's not really showing signs of doing anything quite yet. So that's the summary from Mauna Loa. What do I have here next? Right, Mauna Loa update from the USGS. So all this is coming from the USGS. Here's today's Mauna Loa update. Well, actually, that's not it. That's today's Kilauea update. Here's today's Mauna Loa update. June 23rd. 62 small magnitude earthquakes beneath the summit of elevation flanks, all at depths of less than 9 miles below sea level. So all fairly shallow there. Nothing else to report. Right on Mauna Loa. On Kilauea, we've looked at this report a little bit before, but you can see all this is coming from USGS. This is our primary data source. We're just trying to repackage this information for you guys to make it coherent if you can't go and dive into all the information that they're releasing, which is a huge amount and appreciated. So mahalo to the USGS. All right, Dane, with that, we are at the end of our first segment, and we can switch to some mahalos.
All right. Well, I do want to give a shout out to, we had one more super chat that came in after that, but it looks like the thing got rid of it for me. I think it was Judy that made the $20 super chat. So appreciate that one. We appreciate everybody that turned out today, though. We rely on viewers like you to really get this type of content out. If you enjoy this type of factual content and all that, make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment after the video. That all helps with the algorithm to make sure everything on YouTube side is, helping get us out there. We do also have one sponsor we want to acknowledge, Kaleo's Bar and Grill in Pahoa, and their new location in Orchid Land. They have unique menus at both locations, indoor, outdoor dining, takeout options, and yeah, they've been around Pahoa for a long time. Good to see them expanding. They do Thursday nights, music for the Kaika Marzo normally, so definitely make a reservation for that one. And we appreciate their continued support. I believe we can now get into some. You have a little feedback coming through.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't
It
have
stops when
anything
you
going
talk.
on.
It was just when you're dead, Mike.
Well,
Okay. Well,
I'll
it's
mute
gone now.
myself for. All right.
Well, we can get into some questions then. I think it's all fixed now.
Hmm?
So we do have a couple questions that all relate to kind of the volume of the thing and how fast it's building up. So if you want to try and go through those real quick.
Okay.
Pierre asks, can the pressure of the volume of lava force the creation of other benches?
Benches. I'm not quite sure what he means by
Yeah.
that.
Assume that the pressure. I think it's that the lake keeps filling up until you could create benches if it were to drain. Or do you think those benches would already be there if it were to drain? That's how I'm interpreting it. I'm not exactly sure.
So, I mean, you see a bench form. I'll answer it this way, right? You see benches form in lava ponds and lava lakes and lava channels whenever the lava level is steady for a while. Steady enough that the lava that's at that same level can kind of stick to the walls. And when the lava level drops, then you have something stuck there that doesn't fall down, and then you have a bench, basically, right? So, our lake is filling, basically, at this point in time. But if it's going to drain, it has to turn around and be stopped. It has to go through that point of neutral point first, right, to then turn around. And so depending how long it stays at any point, it could form a bench while it's filling, while it's draining. If we're talking about benches being accretions of lava at the edges of these crater kind of things, right? What else could lava do if it's building pressure? I mean, it could. I mean, it's what it's doing right now is really the most fascinating thing. That crust is buoyant enough to get lifted and pushed up, and is floating basically like an island, right? I mean, that's the most interesting thing. That's unusual. It kind of is pushing
without
up,
cracking.
I mean, it's pushing stuff up because of the pressure already, right? So if we throw out terminology and talk about it that way, then that's already happening to some degree, right?
Right. These next questions I'm going to combine into one question. They're all about the volume that's being come out, the flux, and how long it would take to get outside of the crater that it's in into the next down drop block.
So our previous estimates were using a more conservative value of, like, I want to say 3.2 cubic meters per second. We're now at 4.2, so it's a little faster, than that. Our previous projection put it in December of this year to reach that next level. So I would guess November as my new estimate of this year. Right? Not super far away. But as we've seen, lava emission rate, effusion rate can vary, right? We've only seen it vary up so far, but it could vary down again too. And that's really the big unknown, and that's why these are all just estimates and guesses, right? But for that lower bench, it's not, with the rate that it's got now, and the fact that it's gone on essentially 9 months without stopping, leads you some confidence it might go, July, August, September, October, November, another 5 months, maybe. It's possible, right? That's really the question: is can it go 5 months at the same rate? And if so, then about that would be the answer.
Matthew has a follow-up on that, asking if the lava lake rises to the level of the down drop block or even to the level of the caldera floor, will there be no more Hawaiʻi crater?
Well, that's a great question that I'm not fully qualified to answer, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
But I do have a take on it, right? And I would love to ask the cultural experts who would really know, right? Because really, Hawaiʻi is the name of a place, and not of a crater in particular. So it's a place, right? Even if it's not Hawaiʻi crater, it can be Hawaiʻi lava lake, right? So it could be Hawaiʻi and not have a crater and have a lake. And if you look at it that way, that place of Hawaiʻi has been both craters and lava lakes many times before in alternation. It was lava lake back in the 1900s, and it was a crater, then it was a lava lake, then it was a crater, then it was lava lake. So it changes all the time, and the name just stays the same. So it's interesting to think about that. Yeah, do you rename something every time it changes, or do you not, right? Because in a place like Kilauea, it's always changing, and it just happens that you're seeing it changing. Maybe that's not enough to rename it. I always joke about the chain of craters road in a national park, right? It does go by a few craters now, but it used to go by a lot more. It used to go by twice as many craters, and they all got filled in by lava. And now there's lava shields, and so they could call it the Lava Shield Road. But it didn't change the name. No need, right? It's instructive enough. So
it's just the crater gets appended on at the end to something to describe the current situation.
yeah, I mean, a corollary question is that whole down drop block area, right? Could you call that Halema'uma'u once we get to that depth? And that's what I'd like to ask a cultural expert: is would you name that something different?
Yep.
Would you, could you still call that Halema'uma'u? How far can you stretch it, or how big of an area does Halema'uma'u refer to? Does it refer to that innermost area, or to like the larger area? We know that the whole caldera pit is Kailua Opele, right? That's different. But Halema'uma'u, just the John Drop block is only one side of Kailua Opele, and so maybe it can still be Halema'uma'u. So I don't know. Right. If anyone knows, if you're a cultural expert watching, please tell us. Drop it in the chat, or send us a message or something. And otherwise, we'll have to find someone to ask that of that's an expert. But great question. Mahalo for that, Matthew.
All right. Lisa asked, how do they estimate how tall those bubbling spurts of lava are, or in general, like how tall a lava fountain is without being able to get up there and measure it?
So they're not measuring it from right next to it. They're measuring it from a long way away, but they're doing that using a laser rangefinder. And so they can measure the distance and the angle, and they can then calculate a height, right? And so besides the actual laser that's just pointing to the one location that we see on a graph every day, they deploy a laser and point it to places all over the entire crater floor and get different values and they can see how it's rising and falling in different areas, even though we're not seeing all of that detail. They can see that. So if they see like a bubble bursting, they can be like, okay, the top of it was over there, let's measure that, and let's measure the bottom, and they can get a distance for that. If they see a cone, they can measure the top, measure the bottom, distance for that. If they see the lava lake drop, same kind of thing, right? They're using geometry, and they're measuring it with a laser from far away. Good question.
I think you covered this already, but there was a question about the comparison of the current tolls of eruptive volume and what was erupted in 2018.
I haven't really gone through all of that right now, so let's see.
Okay.
That was yesterday. So that was our talk yesterday. So the as far as the depth of lava, right, we've come up about halfway. As far as the volume of lava, we've in total since 2020, our 93 plus our 41, 130 some million cubic meters that we've pulled in. The collapse of 2018 was 800 million cubic meters. So 800 versus 130 something. So we're actually like at something like, I want to say it was 16.5% volume, 16.5% volume full of the pit. But elevation-wise, we're halfway back, but it's going to really spread out quite a lot. And if I find a map from last month, it'll show that. So let's see if I can real quick find that map for you guys.
Yeah, I'm looking for the...
Here it is. Let me just switch the screen. So this map from May 25th, right below it here is showing this cross section, right? And down here, this blue is where the water used to be. Then May through December through May to here, and then September to now, the pink one to here, right? So here's that little ledge we're talking about. So it can get to here by November is what we're talking about, right there, right? That little lip. They can then fill the rest of this collapse pit. It would have to fill it all the way to here to get in the caldera floor, and that total is that rest of that 80% of it, we'll call it. Yeah.
Yep. And it is 16.5. I just pulled up the number.
Right on.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I do want you to just check the link for the live stream for Two Pineapples. I think they have 2 up right now. So we have our own little one going. But we will be bringing in 2 Pineapples a little bit later and having a discussion with them. That's kind of rainy up there, but hopefully they're still on when we get there. And we'll be able to do this thing. But that does do it for questions right now. I'll let you get back into it.
Okay. I will check in on that stream, but I might just pull it up here at the end after we go through our research and stuff.
Yeah.
Looks like it is going for me here. But so let's switch to the research, and we're going to start actually with Volcano Watch this week. So let me transition to that. And Volcano Watch this week is From Macro to Micro, How Hawaiian Rocks Tell Their Story. And let me drive this thing a little bit here. Okay, here we go. So this week, they're basically taking us through what it's like to collect different kinds of samples, right? So you go out to the field, you're looking at a large-scale macro deposit of tephra, where you can see different little layers. You might target a particular layer in there and collect a sample, mount it on a glass mount, polished it, then use a big microscope to look at that, discern glass and bubbles and minerals, and you might analyze those minerals separately as well. Let me zoom in on this microscope image. See what these bubbles and glass look like under this high power microscope. Minerals as well, right? You've seen little olivine crystals and lava rocks. Like, when you look really zoomed in, you see similar kind of crystal shapes as well, right? Not just olivines, but plagioclase and feldspars and pyroxenes and other things as well. So without getting too far off the story here, they take us through all of that. And so this is all posted on hawaiitracker.com, and I won't go into lots of detail about all the steps that they go through as far as getting that data out of that, right? But the cool thing is that you're talking about really how you can observe things at the field scale. You can observe them like at the sediment scale, and you can observe them at a microscopic scale as well. And on this microscopic note, we're going to switch to a story here on our research that actually will tie into last week's Volcano Watch. Actually, now 2 weeks ago, Volcano Watch, which was a story about Dr. Ashton Flinders setting sail in a NOAA expedition in the Atlantic, right, as part of the Deep Discoverer voyage. So this is something that was going to be live streaming, so I could possibly push this button here and see if this live stream has come online. I think the last thing I saw was, the voyage has been delayed due to mechanical issue on a NOAA ship, Okeanos Explorer. So unfortunately, no live stream there, but this is still a planned outing that's going to happen. And that's also from a couple weeks ago, so maybe we'll move on from there since it's not Hawaii. But I did want to switch us over to some of this research, and in this case, it's more just media rather than research on the Hawaiian archipelago. And so this is a little tangent, a little bit. Find my research button here. Research button. Here we go. So this is a video from
It's a good dry lake bed.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe let's
EV
go
Nautilus.
to the right just a little bit. It looked like it might have a chance
Roger.
of being a little thicker.
To the right.
It's like you can just see tire tracks.
They're north of the Hawaiian
It's
Islands
crazy how dry it looks, and it's at the bottom of the ocean.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So
by
this
some
one-
old
Oh, wow,
seamounts.
yeah, that's not sediment. That's like baked
Yeah.
crust.
Like you could peel it
Wow,
off.
look up to the left there. It's like bricks the way.
Yeah.
Oh, weird, yeah.
Okay.
Cobblestone.
Oh yeah. Whoa. Let's go up and look at that. That
Yeah,
is
Roger.
a really
And
unique
are these
structure.
like a bunch of crinoids on the floor? On the
Yes.
Interesting.
I don't think a push core is going to be successful, but I am
Whoa.
interested
Wow,
in this
look at
texture.
that.
What
is
I feel like I'm looking at like
Yeah, it's the road to
Atlantis,
Atlantis.
yeah.
yeah.
The yellow brick
Oh my
road?
God, this is the yellow brick road.
Wow.
Can we get some still cam shots of this, please?
Yeah,
What is
get lots of
happening?
them.
I feel like we're like out Mount Vesuvius, like excavating.
Right.
Yeah.
This is bizarre. Yeah.
So cool.
Are you kidding? This is crazy. It's like bricked. This is weird.
Just trying to make it a
Just
little
that one spot,
expeditious.
too.
It's so weird.
I feel like I see other like tiny pieces of brick. Maybe it got crushed up or
Yeah.
something.
Alright, that's my limit.
Okay.
That's a really unique.
All right, so there's a little clip there from that video from EV Nautilus. It's a over a month old now, but wanted to share that with you guys here. And there is a little bit of a caption on here, right? And to describe how they're diving on a Liliuokalani Ridge within Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. The summit of Nootka Seamount, the team discovered a dried lake formation, now ID'd as a fractured flow of hyaloclastite rock. A volcanic rock formed in high-energy eruptions where many rock fragments settled to the seabed. The unique 90-degree fractures are likely related to heating and cooling stress from multiple eruptions at this baked margin. So that is basically what we're looking at there, and pretty cool to see that yellow brick road, not exactly to Atlantis or over here in Hawaii, but interesting little look into the kind of things that these researchers might see when they're diving underwater, especially around Hawaii. Right? Something a little bit unexpected there. Pretty cool to see. So following that trend of that and some of the recent research, we're going to talk about this, just mention this, really. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. Paper came out recently in Nature Communications by Miller and others here. And they're looking at, let me advance this here. We're looking at a piece of rock that was dredged up offshore of Kilauea. Here's the edge of the Kilauea Island right here, if you can't tell from this shaded relief bathymetry map right there. There's the edge of the island right there. So offshore of Helena Fault area, and down in here, they've pulled up a bunch of different rocks. This is an old study that actually did this. It's from Coombs and others in 2006. And one of those rocks looks like this. And these researchers came in and found within this rock one of these grains of sand, of the sandstone, right? And so this grain of sand came from some previous volcanic rock, but they can analyze the chemistry of it, right? And by doing so, they actually found one of the oldest lava signatures from Kilauea that's ever been discovered. And when they go back and they do their petrologic analysis on this, they believe that it came from fractionation of the kind of rock that's down there, but forming a melt near the base of the lithosphere, 90 kilometers down, right? That's within the mantle, and that was one of the deepest magma generation depths that we've seen here in Hawaii, right? So, and they say a deep magma chamber is the first stage of the development of a Hawaiian volcano. So it's worth noting that it's not like this is the magma chamber that exists right now. It's this grain that was found of when the volcano was starting up, one of the first magmas to come out, had to come from down deep, that far down. So to put things in context for you guys here, over here, context, here is an image of the head of our hotspot, right? So our hotspot coming from way down, 4-meter boundary, twice as far down as this, but you know, here we're showing the upper 1,000 kilometers, showing that upper part of the plume and the plume head underneath the Hawaiian Islands here, right? Here's a big island right in here. Okay, so we're talking 90 kilometers. We're still like way up in here. It's like still in a very shallowest parts. We're not talking like super deep as far as hotspot depths, right? The mantle plume depths all the way to the core. We're talking about still this upper slice, but for people, it's a long way down for volcanoes too. So here is the different cross-section we've shown before from another USGS paper, showing a magma source region down here below 60 kilometers depth is what this shows over here, right? And then pipelines coming up, and then there being the boundary of the crust and the mantle, and then the volcanic edifice being above that, right? So below that even, right? You know, they're saying way deep down. When it's first starting off, it's puddling up way deep down and working its way up and working its way up more, and then finally popped its way out. So this ties to the study by Michelle Coombs from 2006 and Thomas Sisson and Pete Lippman, all from the USGS Menlo Park. And in it, they summarize how it all goes together. And there's this diagram I want to get to right here. Right? So they actually can then trace like those original early rocks coming up through the flank of Mauna Loa, reaching sea level, form a little island offshore of Mauna Loa here, right? 275,000 years ago was that one of the early stages of Kilauea. And then after that, 100,000 years ago, the more productive stage of the volcano, where we form the whole Puna Ridge here to the southeast, right? And we actually attach to Mauna Loa and really build that whole structure of the volcano to where we look like today, with this combination of what's erupted in the air, in the atmosphere, what's erupted underwater, forming Hopuna Ridge, some of the early parts of the volcano, and then some of the earlier landslides and slumps of Hīlina that everything is built on top of, back down in here, right? And at the far end, Loihi, there's like a little stopper there at the far end to help all this stuff pile up over here. So pretty cool. That's a little bit of insight into the history and that story. If you read that story or heard that story of the Kilauea's deepest magma chamber found, it refers to that, but worth noting that's from a long time ago. Right, and so our typical map that we see of the cross section of Kilauea here goes down to 10 kilometers right in there as a deep rift zone, right, with a shallow structure 1 to 5K down, really, so much shallower than that. Zoom it in for you guys so you can see in more detail there what that looks like. Okay, so while we're talking magma chambers, I thought I'd pull out one other study, which is not super new. It is from the last 10 years, but it's something that we haven't discussed that much before. But it discusses actually the area down in here, right, kind of below the upper east rift zone, right there, below the actual rift zone, below this deep rift zone, down here at this depth, at the bottom of this deep rift zone, right? So this study is Lynn Amelung, Lavallee, and Paul Okubo, in collaboration of the USGS and University of Miami. And they're essentially talking about that inverting all the earthquakes and looking at earthquake waves and the difference between P waves and S waves. The key being that P waves can move through both solids and liquids, and S waves can only move through solids, it can't move through liquids. So you can then look at the ratio and figure out where there's more liquid than solid. That's kind of the idea of the approach. But they're basically finding an area that they think is 10% melt in a cumulate magma mush that's down at 8 to 11 kilometers below the upper east rift zone of Kilauea. Right, and they also think that this is part of that deep rift system and may have been involved in that 75 earthquake. That was a 7.2, right? So if that's the case, it's relevant today because that area is one that we saw refilling after 2018 as well. And it could certainly have had that same kind of source. So here is their actual data. They're looking at Kilauea. Let's see if I can zoom it in. There is that source. All the triangles are seismic stations that they're using. And they have different slices through here, right? So let me talk through this. This column on the left is a 6 kilometer depth. This one's 9. This is where we're going to find our treasure. And this is 12. So above and below, and then right where we're trying to see. And then we're looking at this row is P wave velocities. This row is S wave velocities, and this is the ratio down here, right? So when you see that anomaly in the S wave especially, and the ratio of the two, that's what you're looking for. So without looking at all the different details, I'll cut right to the chase. Right in here, in this zone that they've highlighted, that little bullseye looking thing with orange, yellow, and then a light green around it. This is that deep cumulate building zone underneath the upper rift zone, right? This is that deep rift zone area. They think there's an extra pile of stuff there that's causing the spreading there. And then here's a ratio showing that low, abnormally low ratio right in there. So, and another interesting aside for the more esoteric discussions here. And that, once again, right down in here. So that's all the research I was gonna throw in for you guys this week. We have more, but we're gonna try to ration it a little bit. And so one final mention, of course, is 2008 and 18 is still something people are remembering 4 years on. So without talking about it in too much depth, maybe we can bring Dan in here, he can say what he likes as well too. But I was going to play a short video of what was happening in 2018 to remind us of that few-week period of what was going on, right? So we have Ahu'aila'au, fissure right here, putting out this big river of lava that's flowing across eastern Leilani, and then out of the subdivision to the north, and around that just big kipuka of dried land that's going to burn, breeding its channel, coming past Noni Farms Road area, curving
That's when
down
the channel
around
was
Puʻuʻōʻo. Yeah, and then ocean entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, still, it was a massive rate at that point in time, but it was going to be spreading out a lot more and more over the next few weeks, right? But I mean,
Right.
I remember at the time thinking
one of the most steady parts.
Right. I mean, this was a. It's hard to call it exactly like a sigh of relief because we had just gone through the destruction of Kapoho and that was still super heavy and it hurt. But it was a reprieve at least, right? That not the lava was pouring to the ocean rather than overrunning land that hadn't been covered before. And we ultimately know now that 2/3 of lava went to the ocean, so that was basically why no more area got covered than it actually did. So it could have actually been worse. So that's all I'll say about 2018. But I want to make sure we actually don't forget that it's ongoing here for us. So there we have our little 2018 tribute. So with that, we're wrapping up our own segment here, and we're going to transition to some Kilauea Live. And let's see if I can get on here. Let's see. I can put on here let's see if this live stream is playing. I may have to reload it here. Still light out, and it's going to give me some more ads probably. Past the ad. I'm going to play you guys some of this while that ad goes. This is some footage from 2 pineapples from earlier this morning as well, showing one of those bubbling sinks over there on the side of the crater. And push the button on the ads. And here we are with a live look in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Dane? I kind of heard you say something.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I said, can you hear me? Discord or video thing is freaking out right now.
Yeah, looks like I lost your image, huh?
Yeah, but if you can hear me, the conditions up at the summit are kind of deteriorating, is what I'm being told. If we want to try and do the call with them, let me make sure we got the... Yeah, it looks like we got the right one up. If we want to try and get the call on them, we can try and squeeze that in now, but they're going to be going, taking down their stuff pretty quickly.
Okay, so up to you. We're wrapping it up here.
All right, yeah. Look, well, if we're wrapping it up, then let's try and squeeze it in at the end. We'll just see what we can do.
No, that's it. We're at the end. Give them a call.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. All right, well, let's do it. Good timing. All right, well, let's see what they're doing up there.
I'm seeing this feed here coming in. Let's see if I can get it a little bigger on a screen for you guys. It's hard to exactly frame these things when we're running this broadcasting software, but that looks decent. Well, I've got 2 spinning circles on my screen now.
Yeah, the signal's coming in and out, it looks like.
Right on.
Kind of rough. But, yeah, let's give it a shot then.
Yep, this is some fascinating stuff.
Yeah, we tried.
For you guys.
Oh.
Hey, guys.
Hey, got 2 pineapples here. Can you hear us, Phil?
I got you.
Yeah, we got you.
All
Great.
right. So, how's the wood conditions up there?
Ooh, cold, windy, and wet. I mean, it's off and on. The wind just keeps pushing the rain, the mist. Not heavy rain, just misty coming through. Whites out every 10 minutes or so, and then opens up a little bit. There is lava showing up in the last 40 minutes or so over in the south corner. If you're looking at the screen, it's on the left-hand back side. So there is lava showing. It's a good view from right here. We're over in Walden's Ledge. It's just it's wintry conditions.
Yeah, it looks like it. The stream, I think you're getting maybe blocked by the weather a little bit, but we can definitely see those whiteout conditions out there.
Yeah, we're just jumping all over for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just the weather just knocking us on and off. It's unusual.
Right. Yeah, it does get like that up there
the
for
park
sure.
has great. Yeah, the park usually has great service, but we all know the weather changes on a dime up here. It can go from sunny and hot to cold.
Oh, for sure. And once it gets cold at evening, yeah, it's kind of time to pack it up and go. I appreciate you guys staying on, being able to share some of these images with everybody.
How busy is it up there, Dane?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be up here for a little bit longer. Of course, we were out here streaming this morning at 4 a.m., so we already have a few hours under our belt. But we wanted to come up here and see what we can get and enjoy the view. There isn't anybody up. I mean, there's 12 people here on Walden's Ledge.
So not very busy.
In Hawaii, we sometimes struggle
plus people in
keeping
the visitor center, and they're telling everybody go check out Devastation Trail. So if anybody's watching and listening, and they're up here, come over to Walden's Ledge. It's a mile further back, but the view is beautiful, and there's nobody here. It's absolutely great.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we do got the live view up. We can see a little bit of lava there coming through. Yeah, so what's your guys' plans from here for the rest of the night? Are you going to go live, or are you going to pack it in because of the weather and go live another day?
Well, we're dry now, so when we hang up, we're gonna start shooting live, and we're gonna hold off and as long as we can for a little while because we want to see it get a little dark. We're just starting to see the lines kind of light up through the pond right now, and we're up here, so it's hard to leave when you're up here and you know it's coming. As long as it doesn't start raining more on us, we're gonna stay here a little bit longer and go live.
All right, perfect. So what we have for everybody set up tonight is when this stream concludes, we will be passing it off to Two Pineapples at the Kilauea Caldera, Waldron's Ledge, for their live stream from the edge of the caldera and all the views that they'll be able to grab tonight.
Yeah, so if you want to check that out, go on YouTube to catch that transition.
Thanks for calling up. And if anybody's coming up to the caldera, we're over at Walden's Ledge. Come say hi.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And yep, if anybody's out and about up there, feel like braving the weather a little bit, definitely worth it. Go check out Two Pineapples, and we will be taking you to their live stream as soon as this one's over. Appreciate it, guys.
Have a great night, guys.
All right. You too.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank Two Pineapples for that quick interview.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, great to get that live look in. We're still getting it here. Great to hear the conditions from those guys, and I imagine maybe the park's directing people to Kankakoi just because of the weather, perhaps, right? I mean, maybe it's a little bit better view from over there, a little less wet, perhaps, but as those guys well know, the rain reach over there as well, right? So it just depends on your luck a little bit, but as you can see, even with rain, you can see through the fog and see the lava. And like I said before, you see all the areas that are hot that are not lava. The whole crust is going to be steaming. Probably not quite close enough there, but it used to be you could actually hear the rain like sizzling on the lava, like down in the Kalapana area. So you maybe imagine that if you're off watching the rain hitting the lava lake. And I will promise someday we're going to have a little more extra feature on rainfall in Lava Lake. Rainfalls in Lava Lake here, kind of like we did in the past, but we will leave it at that for now, and you can just keep that filed away if you're going to go see the rain on the Lava Lake. I can't get your image here, Dane, to put you back on with me.
Discord I think is dead on that for this stream at least, so we'll try and get it next week.
Right on. So I guess I will see live with my face on. You can just say your goodbyes.
Appreciate everybody that turned out today. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. I know everybody's tired of hearing it because everybody talks about it, but it's the best way to get a channel to grow, and it helps us out tremendously. So we really appreciate that. Everybody, especially that stuck in to this 1.5 hour plus live stream talking about Hawaiian volcanoes. We do this every Thursday starting at 5 p.m. HST. Unless something unusual happens, then we'll go live, but we haven't had to do that for this eruption since the beginning, and right now it doesn't look like that's in the cards, but you never know. If that does happen, we will go live, unless otherwise we'll see you next week, 5 p.m. HST.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for that, Dane. I do see that we had one last minute question, maybe someone missed it earlier, about where these overlooks actually are. So let me pull that up one more time. Question from Barry Williamson here. So here's a park map. And that view where two pineapples are right now is over here, Waldron's Ledge, Kupinaʻipali. And so if I can, let's see how much I can zoom it in. Way too much, I can't even see where I am anymore. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, so lost now. Here we go. All right, looks great for you guys. Okay, there is a volcano house. Okay, so I wanted to get it nice and big. So, come in the park entrance. You go straight. Park at a visitor center. You can go through the volcano house, or you can go around on this road and on this trail this way that goes down to Kupinaʻipali off in this direction over here. Scroll it down, and there it is, right? You can see it's got this little shape. This is the old Crater Rim Drive, and here's that old overlook I was talking about right there. So this is where you want to go, is on this little loop, kind of at this south edge right over here, right? But there are other additional views along this trail, like not so much from here to here, because there's like there's forest in the way. But once you get right in here, the trail gets back to the crater edge, and you can get other views through the forest, kind of all through here. All right, I hope that makes it clear. And otherwise, yep. So we were just zoomed into this area right in here. And otherwise, the overlooks are Park at Kilauea overlook. Oops. Here and walk this way, or Kahuna and walk that way, or you park at Devastation Trail and walk to Kanakakoi about a mile this way over here. So that's the roundup. Go check out Two Pineapples. Let's see who goes and finds them. Maybe, I don't know if they have any swag or anything.
Yeah, they do actually. We need to get some of that swag going, because I look at theirs, they got all kinds of swag on there.
So go find them. They might have some swag for you. Yeah.
It should auto take you there as the stream ends. YouTube should. This is our first time testing it, but we'll see.
All right, you guys. So from HawaiiTracker.com, Dane DuPont is not on screen, but he is here with us. And I'm Philip Ong. Until next week, aloha, everyone.